Hi, I'm Ric McCurdy. This video is on how to build a solid body electric guitar body from a plank of wood. I show you some of the tools you need, what to look for in lumber, and hopefully make it a little bit easier for you. This is not the final word on this. This is the way that I do it. I'm sure there are a lot better ways to do it, and I wake up every night thinking I really need a CNC machine. But if you don't have one, this is a way that you can build a really good electric guitar with a basic tool. So these are the tools you'll need to make a solid body electric guitar body. First off, you need a straight edge. I like to use a metal ruler. This is a 36-inch metal ruler. Of course you can use a tape, but it is going to save you a lot of time and effort if you have nice straight lines and good measurements. These are the other important part, these body templates. Now I made these, but they are available through Stuart McDonald or LMI, many of the companies, anywhere on the web you can find them. I just made an original shape, so I just cut it out of 3/4 inch plywood, faired the edges, and I use this, once I get the blank all done, I use this as a guide for the edge following router bit in a 1.5-horse router. I made a larger table so it doesn't wobble around so much and you get a better edge on your workpiece. Another very important tool is this machinist square. This is a 5-inch one. I bought this at Harbor Freight. They're available everywhere. I use it to make sure edges are square, and I use it to set up machinery like my table saw, bandsaw, joiner. I make sure everything's square with this. Really saves a lot of time as you move along your progress on your project. Mechanical pencil. I mean, your accuracy in this business is only as good as your pencil line. And if you use a .05 mechanical pencil like this, your line is always the exact same size. And you'll need a regular pencil too, just to darken things up. This is a 6-inch ruler, stainless steel ruler, available at every hardware store. Now if your body blank is not square and flat, you're going to need to flatten it. And I like using this 9-inch jack plane. This is just a Stanley, which I sharpened very carefully, and a low-angle Lee-Nielsen block plane, which makes beautiful edges for glue joints and all kinds of other things. If your blank is really out of square and really needs some leveling, you can also use a hand planer if you're careful. This is my Makita. It has replaceable blades. It stays sharp, and a sharp tool is a safe tool. Now here's some of the optional jigs that you can use to make your life easier when you're making an electric guitar. My favorite is this Fender neck pocket jig, which I got from Stuart McDonald, and it cuts the pocket for the neck with an edge following router bit on a router. I like it because it's very long and has a good center line, so you can get everything centered on your guitar body. These are pickups, same thing. You use the edge following router bit to route the exact same pickup. I had to make my own back in the day in the 80s and 90s, and so this is a Gibson humbucking route that I made. I'll never get rid of it. I've made so many guitars with it. And the other great tool it's so handy to have is a caliper. There's no excuse not to get one. It puts everything in tenths and decimals. It makes things so much easier when you're doing the fine layout. It's also important before you start to do the woodwork to get all the hardware that you want for your guitar. There are important things here like the thickness of the head is dictated by how long the tuners can handle, how high the bridge is off the body depends on whether you're going for a Fender or Gibson look, how deep the wiring compartment can be so the switch still works. So buy all the hardware before you start. So the most important thing about the piece of wood you start with, that it's flat and smooth and has one square edge. It's square to the top and the back. Wood, when it gets cut or thinned to size, it loses moisture and changes shape. Now this probably was flat when it came off the bandsaw mill, but it's hard to show you this. I'm not going to waste your time with this, but you take a straight edge and you find out if the piece is flat or not. And this has a huge hump in the middle. So I'm going to flatten it. The best way to do it is with a joiner or a planer. If you don't have a joiner or a planer, you really can just go to a local cabinet shop and impinge on them. So pay them some money, see if they'll shoot it through their planer or drum sander or time saver, whatever they have. But I'm going to draw lines on here and to show you as I flatten it what still needs to be done. Now normally I would just use a plane. No, just kidding. I'd much rather use power machinery. This is my drum sander. Okay, now it's all pencil lines. So now we're just going to square up one edge to be square with the top and the back, and we'll use this edge to take all of our measurements from. It'll be flat and square. I'm going to do this on the joiner. There's no reason to watch that. It's just an enormous amount of noise. Or you can do it in a vise with a plane. It just takes a little while longer. And just check it with your machine square and make sure that it's square. So now I'm going to lay out where to put the template on this nice piece of swamp ash. Let's look carefully at the piece of wood. Now on this side, there are little kind of knots here. You can see these little things. And so let's avoid that. Let's do the other side. And you see it's got this big W shape on it like this. I'd like that to be in the middle of the guitar, like this. And, you know, rather than have it, just so it's a more pleasing pattern when it's all finished. So now that we've selected where the body goes, we're going to draw a center line. And this will be the guide for everything else that happens from now on. All the pickups, all the neck pockets, all that stuff. So let's draw a good solid center line. Center it over the nice grain that we just discovered, and we draw on the center line. Now to make sure the grain stays on the guitar and doesn't run off, we want the grain to be as straight as possible. So I've traced the center line here. I'm going to take this mark, find out the distance, and then I'm going to transfer it up to here. So the center line will be square to the edges of the board. Now that we've got that done, I want to trace this line onto the other side. The way I do that is like this. Square. Follow it out. Now you've got a perfectly centered line on both sides of the workpiece. This will pay off in the end, especially when you're routing the whammy bar route and all that stuff. Okay, let's move on. As I mentioned, I'm making a left-handed instrument, so bear with me. So now we got the center line, we mark it like this. Now we trace the outside of the body onto the workpiece. We've avoided all the knots, and we're a little bit from the end because when wood dries out, sometimes it gets end checking. And I've always found it's good to leave a little bit of space at the end for those little cracks that you don't see until you're way along in the project. So let's trace it with a slightly bigger pencil so I can see what I'm doing and so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, now we're going to attach the template with good quality double stick tape. I'm just taking the back of the straight edge razor blade to really get good contact here because you don't really want this thing flying off with the router going. With the template attached, now I'm going to cut the majority of the wood off on the bandsaw. So this is how I'm going to cut the template shape into the blank of wood. This is called a pin router. This is a router with a 1/4 inch bit on it, and on the table right under it is an indexing pin, also a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to double stick tape our plank to the top of the template and then cut it out following this pin like this. So you can also do the interior routing like this. This is the way Leo Fender revolutionized the electric guitar building business. And it is a fast and easy way, but let me show you another way of doing this. If you don't have a pin router, you can use a regular router with an edge following router bit. You can see this has a bearing on the tip like this. And so Same thing, double stick tape the blank and then follow the edge of the template with the router bit. It's a little bit more clunky. I'm getting a little bit better cut with the pin router, and so I'm going to use that. All set. Now let's do the neck pocket. So now I'm going to get the neck pocket. So I'm going to measure the depth of the neck pocket and mark it with a pencil. And as I'm routing, I'm going to keep measuring with the caliper until I get to the number which I'm shooting for, which is 0.62 of an inch. Because of the type of pickup that the client wants on this guitar, I'm going to do the swimming pool route, and you can see it's very clearly marked here. 0.8 of an inch deep for the majority of the pocket, and then down here where the volume controls and tone controls go, it's a little bit deeper. It's almost about 1/4 of an inch from the back, 1 7/16. So let's hog these out. Now that the body and all the routing is complete, we're going to round over the top and bottom edges with this 3/8 inch round over bit. Now that all the routes are done, we're going to remove the plywood template. I just use wedges and get that tape to pop off. Alright, now we remove the tape and contour the back edge, and then we'll do the tummy cut and all that. So now I've got it up to this point. We're going to want to put the back contours on. I'm going to dress it away a little bit for the neck, but you want the back tummy cut, so I've marked these on my template. There's that one. That one goes down about 1 inch, and just sketch it carefully like this. Or you can speed things up and just use the belt sander like all those 50s and 60s Fenders. There's all kinds of pictures of people doing these contours on a belt sander. So we've done the major hogging on the tummy cut, but it's a little wavy. It's not really flat. And when you put the lacquer on it, any waviness in here will be transmitted through. So I'm going to flatten it with this power sander. Ooh, that came out real nice. So now that we've done the tummy cut on here, most of the body is 3/8 of an inch round over. And this part is now got a sharp edge on it. So I'm going to hand sand it to get it back to match all the other 3/8 inch roundovers on this guitar. And this is a really cool trick, a felt block. So how do you get the contour exactly the same? The router won't follow it anymore. Phil showed me how to roll it. And the trick with this is to be as random as possible. And believe it or not, at the end of this exercise, it will be the same radius as the other pieces of the guitar. Just kind of rolling it. Now that we've finished sanding the tummy cut on the back, let's do the top arm. I'm going to use the belt sander. Here, I've also sketched in some quick lines about where it should go. Let's start making sawdust. Going to break the edges like I did with the other one with a 120 on a soft block, sand it, and then we'll get on to the next project. So now I've got the body done. We've done the interior routing, we've done the pocket route, we've rounded the edges with a round over bit. And I cut for the whammy bar. I cut the Fender whammy bar. I used the Stuart McDonald jig. It's a left-handed guitar, and so I thought it would just waste your time if you watch me put this route in there. Because a solid body can have any kind of bridge. It can have a Tele bridge, a Gibson bridge, but this one, this lefty, has a left-handed whammy bar. So now the tough part. We're going to sand this thing with 220 and a soft block, and we're going to break all the machined edges and just get it ready for paint. Most mass production paint sites online, MJT, all those guys, they want it sanded 220. My painter likes to have it 400, but we're just going to use the 220 just to break the edges and get rid of some of the fuzz and stuff. This is swamp ash, so it's really soft. It's really like balsa wood almost, this particular piece. So it's got a lot of fuzz, it's got a lot of tear out. So we're just going to very carefully just break the machine lines, get rid of all those machine lines, where the router went, all that stuff. So I'm going to sand the end grain here. This is end grain on the ends and on here. And an interesting way to make your sanding a little bit faster is take a damp rag and dampen this. Once you get it all nice and sanded, dampen it, come back and it raises the grain. So it won't raise under the lacquer, which is nice, and you get a better finish and a lot less sanding. So no matter what kind of finish you're going to put on it, whether it be lacquer or oil finish, the flatter the surface, the better it's going to look. You can see anything you put finish on, the finish amplifies any irregularities in the surface. Now here we are, we're sanding over all these routes, and it's going to be very easy to dip into these things and make them, make it look terrible. So I use a large block, this is about 12 inches, and I use a piece of 220 sandpaper and put it on the block like this. And if you're going to sand over holes like this, sand with the grain, and this will keep the surface as flat as you can get it, which your paint guy will really thank you. Or you, if you're doing a French polish or you're doing oil, the flatter the finish, the better the guitar's going to look. So do the other side because we have this big route in the back. Remember to go with the grain. We're at the point now where you just don't want any cross-grain scratches if you can avoid it. So I hope that answers some of the basic questions about building a solid body guitar body. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. You can just write it in the comments below. I get to it fairly regularly. If there's another part of guitar building that you'd like to see, just let me know. Drop me a line. I'm going to be making more of these master classes as time marches on, and I'd love to give you something that you'd like to see. Thanks very much for hanging in there, and I'll put a list of all the materials and tools you'll need at the end of this video. So remember, the only way to make better guitars is to make more guitars. So finish that project and start making sawdust.